there's a lot of folks out there that are using managed service providers, and I think the assumption is that they're already doing something for me, but maybe people don't really understand. Can you talk about, does my MSP that I'm using today already secure my systems, my stuff, my company?
We hear that a lot, right? Oh, my IT guy takes care of the cybersecurity, right? The short answer is maybe, because there's a lot of different levels of managed service providers out there. There are people that start from, the one guy who was the really smart IT guy at a big company and went out and started his own company, all the way up to fully functioning managed security service providers that require security by design as part of their program. That there is no option to not implement some of the security controls. And then there's a lot of people that are somewhere in the middle. So a traditional managed services provider, absolutely in this day and age, is probably making sure you've got a firewall that's fairly well locked down, may or may not have advanced threat services on the firewall itself. They are probably recommending some sort of a next generation endpoint protection. Most organizations are not using traditional antivirus anymore, although we do see it out there. But they're using an endpoint protection that does look for some sort of machine language, advanced detection for threats other than just virus definitions in a file that has to be updated regularly, which is a little backwards looking as opposed to forward looking. A lot of managed service providers today are taking that further and giving you options for adding on security services, things like multi-factor authentication, maybe DNS filtering, security awareness training. Those types of things are generally in the menu, so that you can say, okay, I'd like to add these things. And maybe they're even coming to you and recommending them and saying, these are things you should do. We think it's best practice to do that. Maybe they've read the NIST cybersecurity framework and they've seen, all right, best practices to make sure that you're segmenting your networks and you're doing this and you're doing that. The problem with the question of does my MSP secure my company is that they probably do at some level. The question is that an appropriate level for what you're concerned about in your organization, the amount of risk you want to take, how big your attack surface is, how important your data is, how important your reputation is, and is that the right amount of investment for you, or should there be more? And I think it's important, if you're comparing MSP A to MSP B, to really understand the line items of what's included in that proposal, so that you can understand, okay, if I don't have the extra 4 things that MSPB is trying to sell me, is that appropriate? Is it appropriate for my organization, for my risk tolerance, right? What we say is appropriate in our organization for how much risk we're willing to take. Is that amount of cybersecurity okay? You could go to the nth degree with cybersecurity. And so sizing it appropriately for your organization, your risk tolerance, and the importance of your data, your reputation, and how they're going to affect your ability to be successful as an organization is really the key to figuring out the answer to what's there.
So, when you say MSP A versus MSP B, the first thing I think about is somebody that uses MSP A. Do they really even know all the things that they have or that they're missing? And I think that's the only chance they really get to making a comparison is to, we call it, have somebody put a second set of eyes on what's going on.
Sure.
To try to educate you. And if the end user is educated, we feel that they'll make a better decision and at least understand where they are, where they stand today, and do they understand the risk level that they're at?
Right.
And I think that's important to know.
It's not the same as buying a dishwasher when you know the exact model and all the features, and you can compare that model's price in 3 different locations, right? And say, where am I going to get the best deal?
I could hit the compare button.
Right. But the deal has to include the risk. and the deal has to understand what is it that I'm not getting in this package. The reality is most managed service providers, managed security service providers, their cost structure is pretty similar, right? So their labor costs are pretty similar, their licensing costs are pretty similar. If they've been in business a while, they know what it costs them, how many hours it does, and that's how they price their contracts and those kinds of things. So if you get a more expensive quote, there's probably more stuff in there, right? You could buy a Toyota or a Lexus, right? Both cars, both have 4 sets of wheels. 4 sets of wheels? No, 4 wheels. 2 sets between the 2 cars. But what are the features that you're getting in the Lexus, and what value does that bring to you over the Toyota, right? Same thing is that, you know, you get what you pay for a lot of times, and the provider who is providing less security, which could be the case to answer your question about whether or not your MSP handles security, takes care of security, is that if you wind up getting other solution proposals and the costs are more, chances are there's more included in there. You have to determine whether or not that stuff is important for your organization.
Good point. Really good.